Hi guys, and welcome back to today's video. And also Happy New Year! I hope you had a nice New Year's Eve. As I told you in my vest video, of this vest you can see in the background, I wanted to make matching pants for it, and that's what we are going to do today. I made the mock-up and I am finally happy with it. I needed to do some alterations, but now it looks good, and I can also show you the mock-up in a second. If you're new here, hi, I'm Kristina, a fashion design student, and I do sewing and design videos. That's the mock-up. It's a high-waisted white leg pant with two pleats in the front, as you can see right here. And it also has pockets that are connected in the center front and the side seams. It's super long and I like to wear pants like that with boots. As you can see in the back, there is still a gap, but I decided to not alter it anymore, and if I need to, I can always go ahead and do that for the final piece. And oh my god, how annoying. I hated this moment that the pattern pieces do not fit next to each other, but it is what it is. If you work with shiny fabric, make sure that you marked how you placed your pattern pieces, like in my case, so the shine always looks the same on all clothing pieces. Alright, I prepared everything. I have my bias binding right here. I just used the leftover lining fabric to create some, because I actually don't want to overlock anything. And instead of overlocking, I use bias binding. I just feel like, because the vest is also fully lined and looks also clean and neat from the inside, I just wanted to do the same for the matching pants. So those are my pieces so far. We have the front, the back, the pocket pieces and the waistband. And I already put some interfacing on places like the fly, but actually I did it for both sides, but that was unnecessary because I need to cut away one side anyway, but yeah, now it looks like that. And I also did that for the waistband. It also has interfacing on. Here it's a black interfacing, and I tried to use a thicker one for the waistband. Then we have the lining for the pockets and also the facing parts. So yeah, that's the zipper fly. So those are all the pieces, and I will start with the pleats in the front. I realized before doing the pleats I actually need to iron in the crease in the front. Is it called crease? I just googled and that's what it told me. So, and I have a notch right here. That's the part I need to take, and I also marked the position here at the bottom too. And I just fold it and I try to balance it out a bit and just iron that in. That's totally optional, but I like the look of it in the pants. I also need to mark the position of the smaller pleat with some vanishing chalk. This pleat needs to be closed 4 centimeters and this one 6 centimeters. And now I can use the line as a guideline and pin it. I can take you in a bit more so you can see what I'm doing. So these points at the bottom line up, and also the notches at the waistline. And for the sewing pad I can now just flip that away. And here I can see where I need to sew. It's the line that we just ironed. And as I told you, it needs to be closed by 6 centimeters, and I added 1 centimeter seam allowance for the waist, so that means at 7 centimeters. So I'm just going to close that from the top to this point. That's how it looks like closed. That's how it looks from this side. And once both front pieces are done with the pleats, I continue with the back piece, because in the back pieces we have dots that we need to close. I just marked it on this side so you can see it better for both pieces, and I iron them towards the center back, and then the pleats and darts are done. There aren't any pockets or something in the back, so I just leave it like it is, and I can continue with the pockets. For that I need my front pieces, and I also need the lining and the facings. And I start with the facing for this part right here. I just put that right sides together and closed that. And after closing the seam, I like to already cut away the seam allowance a bit. So maybe about half of the amount of the seam allowance. And then I like to top stitch on the facing part. So the seam allowance stays in one direction and the pocket will also lay flatter once you've done that. And once that is pressed, I can continue with the lining. I have this piece right here. And now one thing I need to do is to sew on this pocket facing right here. I can just top stitch it, but before I do that, I need to overlock this piece right here. And as I told you before, I'm not actually overlocking it. I'm using the bias binding for it. And yeah, if you're more advanced, you could also actually take the pattern piece, place this on top and cut it out. This way you can sew these pieces together. You will have a seam right here. But yeah, I'm not doing that. So I'm going ahead and add the bias binding and I just top stitch around that and I will be back with the finished pieces. And that's what I mean, it looks so pretty and neat. That's what I like about this method. Now we can continue to finish the pockets. This part I just leave it like it is, and now it's time to put the other part of the pocket on top of it. And now I can, once I have my notches right here, I can go ahead and place this pocket on top of this edge right here. This needs to line up. I need to take my pins, 1 second. This part lines up, this part lines up, and the top too, right here. And once that is pinned, I can also continue to pin the rest of the pocket. Now I can just take away this part of the front leg and I can go ahead and pin the pocket together. Maybe I show it to you like that. That's basically the part I need to pin right now. Now it's time to close the bottom seam right here. So I actually only need to close this part, but I leave the pins up here on the top. And after that I'm already going ahead and also use my bias binding, or you could go ahead and overlock it after that, just the bottom part. Now this part looks like that. Looks nice. And now it's time to place the front leg above the pocket. And we need to secure it in the side seam and in the front and also in the waist so it won't move around anymore. That's why I am going ahead and pin that right here. And also make sure that it lays flat again. And now it's important that you line it up with the center front too, but also make sure that this position stays at the right position. And I pin that too. I needed some time to think because now I just realized that this pattern piece for the lining, I don't need this whole part of the fly. That's why I need to cut it away. And it's 3 centimeters and I'm just cutting this part away. Oh, and I forgot to also cut away the amount of the seam allowance, and that was 1.5 for me in the front. Alright, because now once I fold this part at the center front, now it isn't that thick anymore on this side. So that's better. That also means for me, since I cannot sew on this part right here to secure this piece, I need to hand sew it just for now so it stays at its place, because later on we will top stitch anyway this part right here. So I'm going to secure that with some stitches by hand. And as a last step, I just need to make some stitches right here in the seam allowance at the waistline and also for the side seam, so this part of the pocket stays where it needs to be. This is the pocket from the inside, that's on the outside. I do that for the other side too. And then we can actually go ahead and overlock all the other edges. Okay, I finished the other side too, but now I just realized that I still need to cut away this part right here. So I can show you on the mock-up maybe once again. This is the mock-up piece, and right here is the zipper, and this is the part where we just fold the fly. So on this side I don't need to cut it away, but for this side I need to, because right here we have this fly part that I still need to sew, and we will add that to the seam allowance on this side of the pant. And I just draw that on right here. It's 3 centimeters that we need to cut away. The line should follow the seam allowance of this part right here. And at this point it's time to do all the bias bindings. I will do that for the center back, for the inleg seam, for the side seams, and also for the front pieces. So everything that you typically would overlock right now, I just go ahead and do that with my bias binding and also the hem and stuff. This is the fold. I just open it up again and I place it right next to the edge of my leg piece. For the beginning I use a pin right here, and then I just put it under my sewing machine and I try to stitch as close to the edge of the bias binding as close as I can. And always check from the other side if you actually catched everything or if you need to sew something once more. So I've done that to all of the pattern pieces except for the waistband and for the zipper fly. That's something that I need to do now, because now it's time for the zipper. And for that, let me show you how I insert a zipper for pants. I already marked the center front right here, and in the pattern there's also a position for the zipper end, but that's for a 16 centimeter zipper. So it depends how long the zipper is, but I use this one. It's not that matching with the color of the pants, but I think it's fine. First, before I insert the zipper or anything, I am going to close the crotch seam for the front leg pants. So I just put that on top. And I am just going ahead and sew with my seam allowance up to this point right here, and then I press it open. Oh, and I actually also go ahead after pressing this part, then I'm also pressing the fly of the zipper. So now it looks like this, and I actually forgot to mention that I always sew the crotch seam for front and back twice at least. Still need to sew this fly right here too. I'm closing this part right here. This part right here needs to be overlocked, or in my case I use the bias binding. Now that that is done, I can take my zipper. And then we need to open up the zipper. And I'm taking the side of the zipper and place it right sides together, like that. And at this point we need to make sure that this part right here is around 1.5 centimeters measured down from the waistline. We still need the seam allowance to add on the waistband. Right, and I also made sure that I don't pin at exactly 1.5. that was my seam allowance, but I just pinned it about 1.3 or so, because later on, once that is sewn in, I want to overlap the zipper just a bit so you won't see it. If I would sew it exactly at 1.5, it could happen that you will always see the zipper teeth, but I don't want that. So I just pin it slightly next to the seam allowance. And now I'm going ahead and change my sewing foot to a half foot, and I just sew next to it to secure it. Now this is sewn on, and can continue to add the zipper fly for the side. So that means I just pin it right sides together with the seam allowance right here. I just sew from this side right here where I can see the seam we just did, and I just sew kinda on top of it or a millimeter next to it to secure also this part right here. Okay, and now I usually like to go ahead and iron this part to this side right here and just do a top stitch right here to secure the seam allowance so it's facing towards the side seam. Now it looks like that. And the last step is to actually sew on the other side of the zipper. And for that I just go ahead and close the zipper first. And then you can just place this part on top. Now it's important that it just lays flat. And you also need to line up the center front right here. You can also go ahead and just pin the center front in place so it won't move around. Now it's important to just pin the part of the fly right here to the zipper, and I do that by placing my hand on top of it, just holding it flat onto the zipper, and I'm trying to pin the zipper to the fly. It's a bit hard to see, so I flipped that. I just try to pin this part right here, and now we can remove this pins right here. And now if you open the zipper, you should now be able to sew this part on right here too. And now this is sewn on. Should look like this. Now we can close the zipper once again. Make sure it's in a nice position and that it lines up with the center front. And I just pin that once more, because now it's time to do the top stitch so the fly stays in place. And for that I have a template lining up with the center front and mark it with some vanishing chalk. And now it's important to only top stitch on the fly we folded, not on the one we sewed on. And I can also recommend to pin that so it won't fold back. I top stitched it, and as you can see I tried to sew as close as I can to this point. And now I can remove the pins right here. Now I can go ahead and remove this thread because we don't need that anymore. But I still need to do one more thing and then we are done with the zipper. I always like to put this fly back on right here. And then I go ahead and do some couple stitches right here at this part. And also right before the curve starts. You won't be able to tell, but they are right here. And now you can see it's secured right here and here. Now that that is done, we need to continue with the belt loops before we sew on the waistband. And for that there is no pattern, and because everybody does it differently.
In my case, I just cut out a rectangle that is 5 centimeters wide and about 40 centimeters long, and I have 2 of those, so I can
have 8 belt loops in total, and I just put the rectangle right sides together and sew at 1.2, and once I turn it with a loop turner, I have a belt loop that is about 1 centimeter wide. I sew next to the edges on both sides and then I cut at 10 centimeters. After that, I take my mock-up and I measure where I positioned the belt loops. For the center back, it's about 4 centimeters next to the center back on both sides. Then we have a belt loop on the dart that is closer to the side seam. And I sew them on, adding 0.5 millimeters to my seam allowance. For the front, I also add 2 belt loops. One is positioned right next to the pocket opening, following the line of the opening. And the other one is attached at 2.5 next to the big pleat. After that, we can prepare the waistband. And for that I first need to sew on a bias tape that I prepared, and I do that a bit differently. Here I just use one layer of lining and sew it on onto one edge of the waistband, making sure that I consider the grain line. This part needs to be on the inside of your waistband. Then I sew it on at 0.6 millimeters. Then I press it downwards, flip that under the waistband and stitch in a ditch of the seam we did, and that's how it looks like on the inside. So people, we prepared the waistbands with the bias binding here on the bottom. That's the part that goes on the inside of the pants, and I just pin it and I sew it on like this. I do that this way because actually after you close the side seams and the in-leg seam, it's easier to do alterations on the side seam because you don't need to seam rip the whole waistband. You only need to open it up at the side seam and then you can go ahead and alter it. I think that's much easier. That's how I learned it. I sealed the whole thing and then it's empty. Yeah. Wow. Okay. I'll do it again, but this time with some bobbin thread. And then I'm already going ahead and just press it towards the waistband. Alright, and for the front we do it like that. For this side with the zipper fly it should fit exactly, and for this side right here we need to cut away 3 centimeters. Then that should fit and you still have some seam allowance too. So I just go ahead and sew that on. And I'm actually going to do that from the other side because this way I can see where I need to stop at the zipper fly, because we don't sew all the way through. We stop at the folded line right here. Okay, now it looks like that. I don't have that much seam allowance left right here. I don't know what happened, but I guess I just messed up some sewing right here at the flies. Flip this part like that on the fold line and try to fold it exactly at the fold line. I just pin that and I'm going to sew right here, just up to this point and not further. And I do the same steps for the other side. I'm now closing the zipper and I'm checking if 2 things: if this line continues, and that looks good so far, and if the upper part is also looking like it's on the same height. And once you're satisfied with that, you can go ahead and cut away the seam allowance just a bit. And I'm also going to press the seams towards the waistband for the front part right here. The front is prepared and I still need to close the center back. So that means I'm going ahead and pin this part right here. And I'm also going to sew twice for the center back seam. I already pressed the center back open and now it looks like that. And I can go ahead and continue with the side seams. Put the front part right sides together on top of it, and then I start pinning the side seams. The side seam is closed and now I can continue to close the inleg seam. Alright, and I just close that and I also try to press the seams open. At this point I try it on and I do all the alterations. Now we can continue to sew on the waistband. I start by pinning the back so it's already in the right position and then you can continue with the other sides. And I like to fold it like that. And this part right here I also just fold it like that so it's laying on the inside and over so you won't see it and it gets caught with the seam we need to do. I do the same for the side seams. For the front part right here, I need to open it up just a bit and I fold this part right here towards the inside. I put it on top and I pin that in place too. So once everything is pinned from the inside, I can continue to sew from the other side. And just stitch in the ditch right here. And once that is done, I can actually also go ahead and sew the belt loops on. I fold the belt loop and put it onto the edge of the waistband, and if it is still too long I just trim it a bit and I just top stitch at the edge of the waistband to secure the belt loop. And then that's done and I continue to do that with all the belt loops. Finally I can sew on the hook and eye for the pants. I just do that by hand, but a button closure would also be an option. And the very last step is to sew the hem by hand. I just did a blind stitch because this way no seam will be visible on the right side of the fabric. And then the pants are done. Alright guys, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Those are the matching pants for the vest Celia I did a few videos ago. You can go ahead and watch the video for the vest right here. If you liked this video, please leave a comment and thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Once I uploaded the pattern, I will link it in the description. It will be the first link. It isn't finished yet and I'm still not sure at which point I am going to finish the pattern, but once it is finished it will be the first link. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time. Bye!